Hey, what is up? Mumble here, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not you should be going into New Game Plus in Starfield right away. To put you at ease before diving into this video, I want to clear up that I will not be mentioning any specifics about the ending of the main campaign or any critical details leading up to it, so you don't have to worry about that being spoiled. I have timestamped a specific section of the video where I mention one very important thing to consider regarding New Game Plus. That's kind of a spoiler, but if you've done even like 5 missions in the main campaign, it won't be a surprise to you. But I will warn you before that comes up, so you can skip through it if you'd prefer to cover your ears to that info. With that out of the way, let's get started. So, you've made it to the end of the main campaign, and as with many games like the Souls series and Elden Ring, you're presented with the choice of either moving onto a fresh world to experience the game once again, or staying in your existing playthrough world to tie up any loose ends. In Souls games, you often see an increase in enemy difficulty that scales with subsequent playthroughs, while the rest of the main game remains otherwise unchanged, unless we're talking about Dark Souls 2, which adds new enemy spawns to shake things up. Total sidebar, but that is probably the most redeeming trait of what is often considered the black sheep of the franchise, and I really wish more games did that. Starfield is actually unique in a similar regard, in that you do have impactful changes take place in New Game Plus that may make you reconsider whether you'd like to progress into the new game world or not. When you move into New Game Plus, Bethesda gives you the option of whether you'd like to complete the main campaign again in its entirety or in an abridged form. Along with that, you're also given a whole new set of dialogue options to experience with the members of Constellation and other members of the game world. This aspect is probably my #1 reason for why you would not want to push through into New Game Plus right away. It's an inherently different experience from your original playthrough, and you will not get to interact with Constellation members in the same way you did the first time around. If you're someone who really likes to play through every single dialogue option with NPCs, then you're really going to want to exhaust those interactions before moving on. While you retain all of your skills, traits, boosts from skill magazines, research, and certain benefits gained from the main campaign, you lose just about everything else. All of your items, your carefully constructed outposts and ships, surveys of planets, travel routes, quests, and more are all gone. You will not pick a new background or traits when you move into New Game Plus. You're stuck with those for the entirety of the existence of your character. There are a couple ways to look at this with that in mind. Given that most of the dialogue changes I've seen have been tied to Constellation members, other characters related to the main campaign, and a select few NPCs where you'll say something different but the responses you receive are the same, you could consider powering through to New Game Plus after you've extracted every bit of information out of those particular characters, and then do a proper playthrough of every faction and get your real outposts and ships decked out there. Doing this would alleviate the stress of having to decide whether to give up all that hard work that you put into your outposts and ships, while the other side of the coin would be to finish every main faction questline for yourself in the original playthrough, get to experience all the game has to offer in its entirety, and when you feel truly ready to move on, you can enter the Starfield once again and do it all over. Alright, big warning, I'm going to mention a critical piece of information related to New Game Plus in this timestamp segment, so do not listen to this if you don't want a minor part of the campaign spoiled. Again, this isn't really a spoiler if you've played even a couple of the missions in the main campaign, but if you want to be completely blind to this, then skip through to the next chapter in the video. Okay, so if you've paid attention to any of the campaign, you know that we're searching for artifacts and that there is power linked to these mysterious objects. After visiting any artifact temple, you're awarded with one of the 24 Starborn powers, which costs some amount of energy to cast in return for some positive effect. When you cross over to New Game Plus, you'll have an opportunity to collect all of those powers again and also rank them up. This means that if you're interested in any of these powers, you should collect them all before moving into New Game Plus, otherwise you won't be able to progress them to their next rank in your next playthrough. These powers can go all the way up to rank 10, meaning you'd need to play all the way up to New Game Plus 9 to cap everything out. Yikes, that's a lot of work. They do get progressively stronger, with some skills being absolute dog shit at rank 1, but extremely good at rank 10. So you're gonna have to make a really tough decision on whether you want to consider speedrunning 8 more playthroughs to collect all the 24 artifacts over and over and over before settling on your 10th playthrough to ensure you have everything capped out. If you decide to take this one bit at a time, you'll be giving up all those ships and outposts you built each time around. Or you'll have to accept that you'll truly have to make sacrifices if you don't want to make that enormous push to rank 10 right out of the gates. It's a really tough call. In my experience, it takes around 3 hours of power farming the required campaign quests and collecting artifact temple powers per playthrough, So you're looking at least 24 hours of additional farming before you get into New Game Plus 9 and can finally relax and collect your rank 10 spells and chill. So that's definitely something to put into consideration. You've got spells like Personal Atmosphere, which are honestly S-tier Starborn skills, where you get unlimited O2 for a certain amount of time. And when you have that at rank 10, you pretty much get permanent uptime on it. So if you really value having those powers and you want to see them ranked up, it may be worth considering doing that speedrun. A hybrid approach to this would be to start a New Game Plus playthrough and only farm artifact powers until you have all the powers you actually care about leveled up in that playthrough, and then push on to the next New Game Plus. You'll probably find some powers to not be compelling enough to care about upgrading. Alright, spoiler content over, now back to no spoiler discussion. This is easily one of the most conflicting decisions for someone to make during their Starfield journey, and there isn't really a correct answer on how to approach it. I can say personally that after playing through to New Game Plus 3 just to see what differences we might see, I would say that I would 100% have just fully cleared my original playthrough to see how every story played out on the base game. I mostly say this because I really enjoy seeing the outcomes of every dialogue option, and I'd be sad to see them potentially change dramatically on a New Game Plus playthrough if I hadn't seen the originals first. In fairness though, I speedran through New Game Plus 1 and 2 for research purposes for you guys, and I still have hundreds of save files pre-New Game Plus to fall back on, which is another great way for you to not feel guilty about moving into New Game Plus right away. There are some unspoken benefits that your character will receive in New Game Plus, but I'm not going to talk about what they are for spoiler purposes. Without saying what they specifically are, you would have to reach New Game Plus 9 in order to receive them all. So if you're a completionist, then this is something to keep in mind. It's going to take a very long time to reach that, even if you speedrun through the abridged campaign, so it probably isn't going to be a very attractive option to most players, and there isn't a good way around this. I even tried to console command the New Game Plus bonuses in just to poke around and see if I was missing anything, but I couldn't even find help directory info for what I was looking for, so you might be out of luck if you're a console command enjoyer until those get properly uncovered. That said, this could be a great excuse for you to actually do 10 complete playthroughs where you romance a different companion every time, choose completely different dialogue options from the previous playthrough, and focus on different core aspects of the game to serve as your primary source of leveling. While it may not work as well for you hardcore role players who have an exact character type in mind, I think this serves as a cool way for more flexible players to experience the game differently each time around without necessarily having to build an entirely new character, especially if they aren't particularly interested in doing the full campaign again. The really big bummer to this is not being able to select new traits or backgrounds, which I think is a really big miss on Bethesda's part. I know a lot of people who are really unhappy with the traits they pick, but they feel obligated to stay in their character since they've invested so much time into it at this point. So I hope this provides some context on the very difficult decision of whether to progress into New Game Plus right away, and just know that there really isn't a right way to do this. It's all up to what suits your playstyle. If you found this video helpful and are interested in more no BS Starfield content, then consider subscribing. If you're looking for some useful tips that will save you tons of time in your Starfield adventures, then check this video out next. I'll see you in the Starfield. Peace.